Hey, Alan.
Hey, Tyler.
How's your world going?
Pretty good. How's your world going?
Good. It's the same one.
It is the same one.
What's the name of your continent?
Well, I kind of have two. Fortry and Shoan. So I guess what we'll do is we'll post a link or something along with the description of this so that people can see the map that we're working off of jointly. I have two continents that are sort of like in the eastern hemisphere of the world. One sort of dominated by this country called Chithalan, mostly human, as most of the world is, I assume.
Yeah, we've never really talked about that.
No, but I think we have a similar outlook on like what a kind of fantasy feel is in terms of race, like the racial distribution. So I think of everything as like at least 75% human.
Yeah, that's usually what I do. I think for me, it becomes from a place of I love playing low-level games, which is an interesting thing because you started us at level 3.
I did.
Because you started this campaign.
Right.
You created this world and that I'm now populating another continent inside of.
Yeah.
And the original terms of it, which is starting us at level 3, which is fun and interesting to like be leveling up more than I typically have in the past, just in terms of like I love level 3 being like a really high level that people achieve. Mainly just because I've never in games that last long enough to get to higher levels if you start at level 1. But yeah, for me, I think as a result of that, there's always a thing for me of like a bear should be a threat and like a demon should be terrifying before it's become like it should never feel commonplace, because that's like, I think for me, I have a hard time imagining what that world is like.
Yeah.
Like a world where it's like, oh yeah, that's a dragon, is a world that just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. No. Yeah, because when I see a dog that's not on a leash in real life, I start like sweating.
Yeah, exactly.
I think one of the reasons, and I definitely borrowed this idea or like read it somewhere, of like just starting low-level campaigns, even though we have quite a few new players playing for the first time. Starting the campaign at 3, especially for 5th edition, feels good to me.
Yeah,
because
it does.
I feel like before that point, all of the classes are kind of the same. Like the hit die you haven't rolled them enough times leveling up to like really feel a disparity in like hit point pool yet.
Right.
Everyone's weapons, you haven't had an ability score increase yet, so everybody's weapons are doing like roughly
similar
the same amount of damage.
Yeah.
It's easy to go down. It's easy to like everything just feels the same
and a little small.
Yeah, it feels tiny. It feels like little babies just with weapons running around. But
that's my favorite. But I understand the difference.
Yeah, and something I found, every game I've DM'd so far has had like at least 2 new players in the group. Yeah. And something I've found is that a lot of times they have an idea of like what they want to like feel like or be. And you can't really get that right out of the gate at level 1.
Yeah, you can't be a cool-ass wizard at level 1.
Right, yeah. So I like starting at 3 because then you get your class and your subclass. You kind of start developing this distinct identity. If you want to build something in your backstory that you like, you're a local hero who like slayed this orc or whatever, that like makes sense for a level 3 character. Right. And they're like, oh, I want to be like undetectable. I want to like travel through the shadows and stuff. Like that feels, or they want to sling magic left and right. That's hard to do when you have like a level 1 spell slot at the top of a level 1 adventure.
I am feather falling this one time.
Yeah.
That's my character thing.
That's my cool, that's my contribution to this encounter.
Well, and it's true also, especially with like new players, is that like at low level, they're like, cool, I have this one spell I can do and I'm used to it. And so then as they level up, they just keep going back to that one low level spell.
I think especially giving new players options, it's weird because there's like this line you want to walk of like throwing too many like stats or like making them have to read like 20 20 spells off of the first 2 levels of their class list or whatever. So there's a danger of like accidentally using complexity to kind of like turn them off to the game.
Right.
But then the like trade-off for that is that when they're in character and they're in game, they feel cool.
Right.
At least that's the hope.
That's what I've been experiencing. Okay, so we established
we
it's
should
like
backtrack for like a
75%
second.
human. And so we created a world that is predominantly human.
Mm-hmm. Our adventure begins.
Yes.
In a small, a reasonably sized port town called Begindel in the theocratic nation of Palindo. The ragtag group of adventurers that we've assembled here are all hires, basically mercenary type hires that are enforcing the muscle of a merchant guild that's run by a stern librarian type lady with a tight-knit
That's right.
sort of salt and pepper librarian bun with, I imagine, the chopsticks in there.
Yeah.
Real classic.
She's very no nonsense.
Yeah, like a Catholic school teacher type situation, named Mala Jolden, who has hired the party to basically be night bouncers for her warehouses on the docks, which have been getting hit with a string of robberies recently. And I thought that would be kind of like a simple, kind of straightforward way to establish, you guys have been working together for a couple of days. You at least on a surface level, sort of like know each other in a coworker capacity and what you're kind of capable of as a group. And you have like a kind of clear objective right out of the gate at the top of this thing, including your character.
Yeah, my character, Vareth Deadheart, the tribe, what is it? Totem warrior barbarian?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. Vareth talks like this, which is a very subtle but important distinction in his characterization.
Yeah.
And Vareth is a man, a former military man. You could say that his backstory is basically summed up as Dances with Goliaths. It was basically where I pulled most of it, or like Avatar, the fantasy edition.
Yeah.
He just basically was a soldier who went native with the tribe of Goliaths, but he's a human, and then that tribe got killed because he couldn't save them, and now he's a broken man caught between two worlds, and he has forsworn so far holding on to weapons to continue the tradition of the Goliaths. That you win, that you use the weapon that your last fallen enemy carried.
Yeah, I was hoping that your build would come up in this conversation, because I think it's interesting from a roleplay perspective.
Yeah.
And how you kind of use mechanics to kind of like reinforce that idea. Can you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm a barbarian, and I'm pretty strong. Given that the soldier background, I use chainmail. So I still have like a decently high AC, and then I went variant human and took the tavern brawler feat at level 1 so that I can use improvised weapons, and then basically I will only use a weapon until I've killed somebody, and then I take their weapon and drop whatever I was carrying before, and then barring that, I just pick up whatever's around me and use that, which is funny because what has ended up happening is, at least because I haven't been able to play every session, most of the sessions we've played, we've been fighting or in situations where combat has been where we're not actually fighting like anything that has weapons. Is
weird. What a coincidence.
I know. So it's a lot of me just being like, well, I'll throw this barrel at that horse.
Yeah, I remember our first session, Vera threw a trash can at a horse, and it was like, whoa, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing it.
Because it was like, it wasn't the horse's fault. It's just there was a guy riding in a wagon that it was attached to, and I needed to stop that guy. And Vareth is a very simple man. He sees a solution and he goes after it, and he doesn't consider consequences.
Yep. We've seen that.
Yeah. He also
actually recently, and so the party. Long story short, I'll probably have Tyler filled this backstory out through the eyes of his character. But long story short, in one of our more recent sessions, the party has found themselves in the Feywild, and they broke a statue. And since they didn't really have, there were no weapons around for Vareth to kind of pick up, he's actually been using a huge marble gorilla arm that he's ripped off of this statue as like a club.
Yeah. I guess really that's like the last enemy that he vanquished was that statue.
Yeah.
So he's just using its own arm. Yeah, I'm trying to get to the point where I like it makes sense for me to use a body as a weapon.
Like
almost.
a dead body.
Yeah, like just to lug it around. I don't know if we'll ever get to that stage, but he really loves this gorilla arm. I can say that. Like it feels really good carrying around a giant marble
It's
gorilla
pretty cool.
arm
You're
as a
just
giant
kind
club.
of punching things to death with a stone hand.
Yeah. I'm going so much towards like using his mechanics to understand his role play.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't built Vareth from like this is my role play and this is how I want to mechanically create it. It's been I'm going to mechanically create a character and then figure out what that means with him role playing wise.
Yeah.
So it was like mechanically I'm going to go with the like eagle totem for level 3 so that he's like fast because we need somebody else because the only other person in the party who's martial is fast is a monk. And then it was like, so I want to be able to keep up with him. And then it was like, oh, that actually makes sense to me because then, yeah, he's a scout. So he's like used to slipping in and around and he's kind of got that tribal background to him. So he's like a Dexy barbarian because he's not a barbarian by birth. He's just like
right. It's
given up
something he's like learned.
Yeah. So it's like he still knows a lot about like military and tradecraft and like civilized things. He just like has lost his belief in it, which is fun.
Yeah.
So my the adventures of mine take place in Zapad, which is broken up into 2 continents, North and South Zapad, loosely controlled by an empire, but that empire is crumbling rapidly. You guys are oblivious to all of that. You guys are in the small town.
Are we oblivious or do we just not care?
It's hard for me to tell. So I suppose you guys could figure it out because you guys are in the small town of Dathfield, which is just like a middle of nowhere between 2 cities, like between 2 points of interest, just as this place that's like a crossroads town that your characters all just were sort of passing through and then got roped into an adventure specifically of like missing children. Missing teenagers that you kind of got forced into as the outsiders being brought in to settle a dispute between 2 regional powers of the Pella, the name of the light priestess,
who isn't. She's not even disabled.
She's not disabled. It's a thing. Well, she
was actually.
She was completely disabled. She walked with a cane and.
We were just so certain that was a ruse.
Yeah, it is funny to me because so there's that, and then the Lord Pharaoh Flame's son Yentef, the young lordling, and Pella were in a fight, and you guys were called in to resolve it, and you went out, and then it turned out you guys all knew each other.
Yeah,
or some of you all knew someone else in the group.
Yeah, it was like it's like a friends setup where we clearly mesh well together as a group, but everyone really only is connected to like one other person at the top of it.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny how it's like shaking out now because there's new connections forming, which is really lovely. But yeah, so one of those members is Soaking Bob Brightcliff.
Yes. That's
And
my guy.
please.
So upon receiving and reading Volo's Guide to Monsters, which I recommend it. I recommend it because I think on a couple levels. First of all, the added like list of monsters they're all amazing.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to find a way to jam a froghemoth into
Yeah, me too.
a session somewhere because that's just the funniest shit I've ever seen.
It's just a big,
It's
nasty
just a
frog.
fucking big frog.
Yeah.
and it's mean and it's big, and I like that.
And it has more psychic powers, or it has more abilities than I expected a giant frog to have.
Well, yeah, it's like because it's flavored around like
it's like a
licking
space
toads,
frog, right?
Right? Yeah, it's like it's great. It's just a big frog. I won't give any more spoilers because I don't know. Will we get sued? I don't know. But additionally, I think the added roster of player races is super fun.
Yeah.
And I'd never really played like an exotic race before. It's been, I think, exclusively humans and dwarves for me.
Interesting.
So I was like, great, let's go with like a goofy Catman character. And I had this idea because I was reading in Volos that they, I guess in a cat-like fancy, they tend to get fixated on singular obsessions or like trinkets, stuff like that. So when we were putting the game together, I was like, hey, Tyler, can I play a character who has like been visited by a vision of this relic called the Key of Rethador, and like he doesn't know, it came to him in a dream, and he doesn't know like really what it looks like or what it does, but he believes that it's his destiny to like seek this thing out. And I kind of made this around it. I made this kind of dummy dum-dum who
he's basically Balky, like a perfect stranger's Balky with claws.
Like he's kind of like a dummy who had a dream that he was so sure was real that he's just relentlessly pursuing this thing, and it might not even exist. I still don't know if it's gonna like if it exists in the game or if he has the capability to find it or like what it will do.
Spoiler alert. It do exist. And he does have the capability, but it might not be what he thinks it is.
Okay. Well, I'm ready for that.
Yeah. Because, once you said it, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I purposely was like, I have no idea what it is either, and I'm going to keep that for a while. And then a few things happened, and then I was like, oh, shit. I now understand what the Key of Rethador is, what Rethador is, and why it's relevant to the world that I've already that we've already created.
Yeah.
And was like, okay, cool. It was nice. It was like a pleasant, like, shoom, and a bunch of different things coming together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you guys have a rough idea. And I will say, people in your party have some information that, if shared, could give you guys further.
Dang.
But it's funny because Soaking Paw Brightcliff, while you say he's like single-mindedly determined on it, right now he's really
he's distracted right now.
Yeah, right now he's really enjoying his campaign as like a gladiator. In amongst men,
we've been put into a situation. We Soaking Paws and most of the rest of the party have been kind of dragging their feet to do this task that has been kind of forced on them by your NPC Lord Ferroflame.
Yeah.
But upon arriving in this kind of like seedy, crappy, it's like the streets of New York, but a whole town.
Yeah.
And now we found that the only way to like get the recognition we need to complete our task is to basically become local celebrities in this gladiator ring, and I am just loving it.
Yeah,
like, I'm human Alan person.
Yeah, I was
going to
ask.
I that's so fun, and like we're basically playing like our strategy is that we're pumping the two of us who are actually in the fighting rings, and kind of like selling them in like a WWE fashion to build these like huge personas and like rile up the crowd and just brutally remove body parts from enemies. It's pretty cool.
It is. It's pretty fun. Which actually leads me to an interesting question, or I think an interesting question. A question I'm interested in.
Okay.
Since we are each DMing a different game in the same world.
Right.
And I think our parts of the worlds are pretty different from each other. I'm curious to know, like, and I feel like this is something that, like, every time I've DM'd, I've always wished I could get a perspective on. What does the part that you're in feel like? Like, from your perspective, if you were to describe, like, the world of Zapad or the world of the campaign you're in so far, like, what are some things? And I'm happy to offer the same.
So I'll kind of backfill this answer with this, is that when I was building the character, I was like, I think it'd be cool if Soaking Paw came from this like place. When I had drawn the map, I had kind of created this country that's been controlled by goblinoids. It's basically entirely goblinoids. And under the martial rule of hobgoblins, the human like controlled parts of the whole continent have basically just been like, oh god, fuck them, let's just put them behind a wall and just like whatever, it's not worth it. So I kind of like posed this idea to you about having him be from there, and then you kind of went, you gave me this whole like
I went pretty
structure. Yeah, it was great. Like Tyler gave me this whole structure of like, cool, you want to be from what I on the map had just called Hoblands. You were like, great. It's run by this military hierarchy called the Q-Markage. Here's how it works. Here's what's going on, blah, 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 like all this stuff. So I was like, holy shit, like this is so much information and it's awesome. And now I get to build some of that into my character. So like Soaking Paw won't touch anything that's been created by an armorer or like a weaponsmith that's made of steel, because in this like heavily regimented society, if you're not a warrior, you're not allowed to have that kind of stuff. Which
is a detail you added.
Right. Well, no, but the like weapons and like hierarchy of like a caste system.
Yeah.
That's all from your description of this place.
So my description says you can't touch.
Not that I can't, but that my character would be in a subservient caste.
Yeah.
So I was like, cool, I can use that information to like develop character traits. So I will say that it feels, to use that to piggyback into my directly answering your question, it feels like a varied and like sort of chaotic situation where like there's a clear power structure, but there's like a waning aspect to this, right? So there's a bunch of everyone we've met so far in some way or another is either disgruntled, corrupt, or like power driven, power corrupt, or they possess power that they are like kind of using for their personal gain. So we're getting this like strong sense of like a Rome, like a fall of Rome analog, where like the roads are crumbling and there's like enemies at the door, and like half the population is like, hey, what the fuck, we used to be awesome and now we're not, like nothing, we're just garbage town. And like there's like weird racial elements involved in there, which are like interesting from a roleplay perspective, especially since and I don't think this was like intended to be this way, the party is basically entirely non-human.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, I didn't expect that at all.
They're wandering through this country where people are like, well, you know why we're in the situation we're in is all these weird half-breed, like little halfling fucks come in here and like a bunch of weird cat men are like ruining it or whatever. Like, so then playing as those people and like having to like role play around that is super interesting.
It's been weird. That has been interesting from my perspective also, just of because of
volatile. I said chaotic, a chaotic place. It feels like a place where there's a lot of tension under the surface. Yeah. Sorry,
cool.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say with the party being so diverse, so much more diverse than of like we have like 2 humans in a party of 6, and they're played by players who can't be there every week. So like our base group is like 2 halflings, an elf, and a cat person. Yeah. In a country that is like 90% dwarven and human. It's been really interesting having like being like, well, it's interesting basically having the default NPC behavior to be racism is like a weird thing. Yeah. To like jump on and be like, I don't want to like steer away from this because then it feels weird. But it's also it's just like a really interesting experience to be like playing characters who, if they are not at odds with or play NPCs who, if they're not at odds with the characters, there has to be like a real reason for it beyond just like, I'm just a nice person. Because it's like, well, you're a nice person in like a heavily entrenched like cultural system. You would still be like, I keep my distance. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want any trouble. It's really interesting.
I think it makes it feel more real too. Like, it's easy. I think it'd be really easy to forget, like, oh yeah, we look different, and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it'd be so easy to forget when you're sitting at the table and you're like, oh great, well I need to buy some potions, so I'm gonna go fucking buy some potions. But then when we walk into the shop and the lady's like, what do you want? Like, we're like, oh yeah, I forgot, I'm a 6-foot cat, like with no shirt on. So of course this is how this is gonna go down.
Yeah.
It gives it a feel rather than just like we are the mechanics of like the racial modifiers that are in the book, you know?
Yeah. Similarly to the volatility of it, just to speak from the Vareth's experience in Beggendell and the larger continent. Excuse me, what's the larger continent? Shoan, of course. How could I forget? It's been interesting because...
Oh, excuse me. The larger continent that Beggendell's on is Fortry.
Fortry. That's why Shoan sounded so foreign to me.
It is. You've never actually been there.
No, that's not the Dwarven place.
It is. Shoan consists of a Dwarven kingdom called Bwostel and Chthelen.
That's the place where I know a bunch of stuff is happening, but no one else in our party does.
It's kind of a shit show over there.
Well, and that's
they know. The party knows because a bunch of refugees arrived.
Yeah, we know.
Quote unquote,
no. But that's what's funny about our world is our game feels like a group of very small people with no awareness of the larger context, while constantly getting the hooks for the larger context. Like, we're constantly being exposed to, like, if you turned right instead of left, you would be in the middle of like the biggest hero's journey of all time, and we keep turning left like every chance we get.
It's so true.
Like, every time that you're like, well, some people say there's a lot of things going really wrong in Chthelen, or you can take this trip to go buy paintings. We're like, well, we better go get those paintings.
But you know, I it's fun for me because
I know it's great.
If the players only ever do what you anticipate them doing, then I might as well just be writing a book, right?
Right.
So like another example of that is, and I think you were there for that session where you guys descended through the tree.
Yeah.
And like the gravity would like reverse.
The giant tree tower in the Feylands.
That might be a thing that I put up somewhere if people are interested in it, just to use as like a pseudo dungeon of like, it's basically like a series of puzzle rooms. Yeah,
it was really fun. And took like a perfect amount of time. Like, it was like a 2-hour dungeon.
Yeah. And there wasn't even really any fighting in it.
No.
It's just like obstacles.
Yeah.
Here, and I think we'll probably talk about this at some point, but the short version of it is when I design dungeon encounters or like puzzles or whatever, I usually think of it in terms of like, what are some interesting obstacles that I can throw at the party, rather than like trying to come up with like a riddle that has like a solution pre-planned, or like a monster that has like a specific weakness or something. Because it's always way more interesting to me to see what you guys, like how you guys solve the problem, rather than like try to see if you can find the solution that I planted. So a lot of times when I build stuff like that, like when I was like, great, the room below you, you know, you're standing on a glass floor, and the room below you is 200 feet down, and that's like basically the only way to go. I didn't know what the fuck you were gonna do. I didn't have like a solution or like a secret ladder or something. I was like, I'm curious, how are you gonna get down? I want to know.
What I really wanted to do, what Vareth wanted to do so badly, was go into a rage, break the floor, and if he had been by himself, 100% would have done this, was just break the floor and just let himself fall down. And because of like resistance to bludgeoning damage and his HP being what it is,
just like probably survive.
He would have, I did the math, and he would have survived by like 1 HP. Like, he would have basically gotten there, fallen, and then just like passed out and then woke up like 8 hours later.
But then how would everyone else get down?
Well, that was the thing. That's why I couldn't do it, was because I had all these other people with me. But I was like Featherfall is for weaklings. Like,
Dude,
I don't need Featherfall. I just need to get angry.
Not having a sorcerer or a wizard in the party makes my life as a DM so easy, because obstacles are real. Like, heights are a problem. If I put something in the ceiling, it's like an issue to reach it.
Like in the very first game that I DM'd of our play, I had made this like where I was like, this is like a fun little trap in this like tunnel that they're gonna find themselves in, and then one of the other players, Erin, just sent her familiar down, and it just saw it, and I was like, yeah, there's no reason why it wouldn't see this. It's a pseudo dragon. It can, of course, it can see this. Yeah. I'm not even gonna like try to do anything. I'm just gonna let that trap be sprung because, like, yeah, they've beat the trap by just their natural abilities.
I think that's like part of it, right?
It's
like,
totally.
Like, because then as a party, we're like, oh, cool job, Eon. And we like give her a high five. Yeah. And she's like, cool, I did, like, that's my contribution to this encounter, is we don't have to fall down a pit, right, because I have the ability to do something that if I wasn't here, no one else would be able to do.
Right.
I kind of like, I don't know, I like that.
I do too. It's just so funny to experience as a DM.
Because
it is like the most satisfying thing as a DM, because it's like watching a kid take their first step where you're like, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm so proud of you for thinking that good solution to get out of this problem. And then you're also like, but I did also spend 20 minutes figuring out all of the math for this problem. And it's just like, and kind of relates to the other thing, which is what I'm doing for this campaign is I created, similar I think to you, is I've created some large scale issues that are happening regardless of what you
whether
guys
you're
do.
there or not.
And then, but very specifically, I literally have no plan for you guys at all.
Same.
I've only been saying, like, here are the places you can go, and I will just follow behind you guys and try to make sense of, like, try to basically fill that world as you're walking in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like just so entertaining to be like, cool, this is just going to be like 30 minutes of you guys like haggling with a guy for like potatoes.
Yeah.
Or like, trying to determine if an apple this woman gave you is poisoned or not.
It's weird. Yeah. It's always weird to see. And even from inside, because I think when you're on the player side, you don't notice that stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're in it. But it's, I guess to phrase it as a question to you, does it feel weird to you when your players latch on, like kind of like latch onto something that you're like, oh, this isn't even, oh, all right. And then you kind of like, you're like, okay, well, great. What's this random NPC's name that now everybody loves for some reason?
Right.
And like, what they want to know about his dad, and I don't fucking know, like, what's going on.
I'll say, no, it doesn't feel weird to me. But it is really entertaining to me because, like, for example, from my notebook from our game on Monday, let me give you a list of people and places that did not exist before the start of our game.
Oh, yes, this is awesome.
We have OSC Great Vale the Vanquisher, who is...
That guy was just made up?
Yeah.
I didn't even want to talk to that guy.
You did not want to talk to him at all. Well, it wasn't it was just like...
And now I have his hand in my backpack.
Yeah, you guys beat up a guy who's just another adventurer, and then you behanded him.
I did.
And he's not necessarily dead.
Well, I hope he's not. He's on my death list.
Well, you might be on his.
I keep a death list.
Yeah. So I had OSC Great Vale the Vanquisher. We had Tebrick Hirsch, who is a name that you guys never got, but it is the person that you saved from OSC Great Vale.
The guy who ran off into the woods naked?
Yeah. That you guys made him drop his pants.
He was a criminal. I still disagree with the other party members over this. I mean, as a human being, as real me, I think we did him absurdly wrong, and we should have like helped him back to town because he was like weak and sick.
Yeah.
But in character, I think we were way too nice to that guy.
Yeah.
He's a criminal, and we should have just left him up on that pole.
Yeah. So, and for context, there was 2 criminals on a pole, 1 dead, 1 alive, and OSA Great Vale was underneath, waiting for him.
The quote-unquote vanquisher.
Yeah. his vanquishing methods are dubious.
He doesn't really, even in his own words, he lets the gods do the vanquishing. So he calls himself that really still kind of bugs me.
Well, and that would be my answer to it is like, does it bother me that people latch on? No, it does. It flusters me slightly in the like most pleasant, entertaining way possible, which is when I suddenly have to start improvising character motivations and backstories of like, I am OSC Great Vale, the Vanquisher, and then I'm like, yeah, I put them up here, and it's like, but you didn't vanquish them, and then it's like, shit, you're right. And then be like, yeah, so I find as a result, a lot of the people that like a lot of the NPCs that exist in my world are a little not stupid, but a little like they don't think their own lives through.
I loved that guy. Like as a character, I loved that guy.
Other people we have Vigor, the city guard, who got silence cast on him. That's also on your death list, I believe.
Yeah, he is on my death list. He had some shit to say about Tabaxi that
he did.
I didn't like.
No. We have the town of Flern. We have the town of Harlottown. We have the Warrens, which is a neighborhood.
Harlottown, after we just like randomly used your NPC angry dad in your town called his daughter a harlot and dragged her away. And we came to find out later that...
Well, we thought he called her a harlot because she was flirting with a halfling. And then, of course, we all quickly realized, well, that couldn't be the case because that halfling looks like a human.
Right.
And then I revealed the truth to you guys that I had totally known all along and was just letting you guys think otherwise, which was that harlot was a term meaning like from the town of Harlotton, you're a harlot. Right. So it was like a harlot.
Exactly.
Not a
she
harlot.
Is a citizen of Harlottown, which makes her a harlot.
Yeah. So that exists now.
Yeah.
And that demonym, that place name. We have Zurich, the dwarf, the blacksmith.
Yeah.
He was brand new.
I like him.
He didn't exist before it, and he has... It's funny because I'm trying to set aside time this week to go in and write up all of these characters because some of them, like Zarek, for example, had enough said about him that he is now a major character in the world of this thing just from like maybe a 1 minute in-game conversation.
Right.
Like not very much was said to him or anything, but enough was intimated in that conversation by him that
yeah, I mean, we got a lot of information about him in a brief period of time. He is like... He speaks Goblin, so he's like been around.
Yeah, he's like a former
gladiator hero
who like is very close to and also fought a Tabaxi.
Yep.
There's a lot going on with that guy. We got Second Commander Rear. We have Guard Durbid. There was a lot that happened on Monday where it was like, which also goes to like another thing that like is interesting. Or to me is like figuring out different DMing style. Mm-hmm. And mine is, I think, 80% random generator content at any given point with like, or I would say probably like 70% of any day is random generated content with 30% of like heavily researched and planned overarching narrative. And nowhere in between is that day's. So it's just like, I know what the world is and I know where we are and what's going on in the city writ large. And then it's like, I don't know, there's a shop across the street. Yeah, it's run by that blacksmith.
See, I feel like mine, I almost have the opposite sort of dealie, where like I go very loose but very wide. So it'll be like, great, there's a thing over here and a thing over here and a bunch of stuff over here, and I'm anticipating the characters are going to make like one of these like 5 basic choices, and then I kind of like web out from that.
Yeah.
But it's all very like surface level, and then when you guys start probing, that's when I start having to make shit up.
Right.
So I'm like, you guys are like, great. We met these 3 satyrs. What are your names? And I'm like, fuck. So I like go and like make them, and then we're like, how do I make them distinct from each other? So I like give them character traits kind of as we go. And I have like this idea of like, great, they are on a quest, right? They're there to do something. And then you guys are, I'm like, cool, that's why they're here. They're like on their way from point A to point B, and they run into the party at this location. And then you guys are like, why are you going there? And I'm like, oh, great, let's make some stuff up. So like, because I think, and I assume, I'm going to ask actually, instead of thinking or assuming for you. Like the enjoyment that comes from being a player in a game is, they're like, it's almost like playing two completely separate games when you compare like what makes being a player fun and what makes being a dungeon master fun, right? And to me, a lot of that dungeon master fun comes from like, I trust intrinsically that there is a world at large, and that there are like things that are happening whether the players want to get involved with them or not. Like you were saying earlier, like if I'm like, cool, here's a portal, you guys are trapped in the Feywild, I give you a portal to go back to the real world and like address some of the crazy kind of shit that's going on there. And then the party's like, you know what? Let's just hang in the Feywild for like a day. And I'm like, great. I wasn't ready for that. But I trust that like I can spin out like stuff to do and like make this place real as I go in reaction to what the party is giving me. And that's like where the fun is for me, is like having to like basically like 5 people essentially throwing balls at me and trying to like catch them all and like make them something.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. For me, like as a player, the fun thing is trying to figure out the story the DM is leading us down, and like kind of trying to figure out what the story is, where it's like with our game, because we share the world, there's a certain amount of things I needed to know about the larger context of what's happening specifically in your game vis-a-vis what's happening in Chithalan, which is
what is happening.
If you feel comfortable sharing it.
I will share it.
I think it's important to both of our worlds.
I think so too.
Because it's one world.
The larger backstory behind, even before the first adventuring day, is that a group of cultists that everyone kind of like wrote off as like, oh, look at these like weird Barbu worshipping cultists. They're annoying, but they're harmless. They're dumb. A group of cultists, one way or another, manages to actually open and stabilize a small portal to the abyss. And their sort of demon lord that they worship, Barbu, just spits a shitload of demons through this portal before a group of celestial fists, which is sort of like this elite SWAT sort of team that exists in Chithalan, and they're kind of like world renowned in the way that like Green Berets or like French Foreign Legion is sort of like world renowned. The celestial fists kind of show up lazily, like, oh, got to put down another arm of these like lame cultists. They get there, they realize like, holy shit, they literally started the end of the world. They managed to like close this specific portal, but by that time there's literally like several legions of demons just like in this country
rampaging.
So the setup for that whole situation is that while the party is off, flirting with centaurs and collecting paintings, while they're off doing that stuff that they've like chosen to do, and is well within, like, I'm so excited to do all that stuff, but knowing that in the world that I've created, while all that's happening, this once magnificent human kingdom is losing inch by inch against this onslaught of demons, and that it has huge geopolitical implications as other countries, refugees, as you guys are leaving Begondale, refugees are pouring in on ships because they're like, we have nowhere to go, our whole country is on fire. All these countries and like governments are now having to be like, what do we do? Like, do we get on the defensive? Are we concerned that there are pockets of demon worshippers who can do something similar on our lands? Do we send our troops? Do we like commit and send our troops to Chithalan to try to like nip this thing in the bud? Do we just let them deal with it? Like, what do we do? Like, what? In a similar way to like how, and I kind of mapped that idea over the idea of like recent
Yeah,
political
right.
things in real life. So like, what are we doing about Syria? What are we doing when Crimea happens? When you're
Right.
like, these things have tremendous far-reaching consequences, whether our heroes decide to go kill an artist in her gallery or not, like
Right.
whatever.
Right. For paintings.
For paintings.
Yeah.
They need those paintings.
Oh, totally. Definitely the most important thing for us.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. What was the question again? You just asked
yeah.
about the demons.
Yeah.
But that's something that's like happening.
Oh, right. So yeah, and I was saying, so like that's something I know about, but the rest of our party doesn't, and that's like entertaining to experience. Is just that like ticking clock, but I'm the only one that's aware that it's ticking.
Mm-hmm.
Is a pretty fun, but that's like, but so like I was talking about like as a player's experience, what like for me it's fun seeing, for me as a player specifically in this moment, it's fun seeing if we're going to land in that story or not, or if not, what story is going to end up mattering to us.
Right.
Which is the one thing about playing with like new players is that new players are much more apt to be simply reactive to the world. Like,
I have noticed that.
Like they're more apt to be like, well, I'm assuming someone's going to tell me what to do ultimately. With the demons, they are, I don't know if you picked up on it or not, but like that is why Pella was like part of that, or was my attempt at connecting to that.
Was she specifically a demon?
No, but she was a fiend warlock.
Aha.
So a demon was her patron.
I did not pick up on that.
Yeah.
We killed her dead.
You killed her way dead, and in a very public and squishy way that like didn't give time for a lot of like follow up.
No,
so
we
it wasn't a
got
huge
the
concern
fuck out
of
of
mine.
town after that happened.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think part of the problem was that I thought we were going to make a big show of it and get the people on our side.
Yeah.
And that really backfired when I kicked her cane out from under her and she fell down the stairs.
Yeah, it did. It also backfired again because it is like an interesting thing to experience of like, you guys are outsiders on so many different levels that it's like, yeah, no one's gonna like, it's gonna be really hard for people to like just decide they like you. Like you'd have to be like really good. Like you have to be, you have to
like overcome their expectations.
Like you have to be better than the best human adventurer.
And we are not.
And you guys have no interest in doing that, which is great.
No. And also something funny that's kind of like, that I find interesting from the player side of it, I'm curious about your thoughts on, is that we've kind of like, as we've been playing as these characters, we've kind of settled into this idea of like, because we're not from here and none of us are humans, we make a lot of assumptions about what we think humans like to do or think, but we don't really have the insight to like really get it. Right. So like a lot of the recurring themes of this are like, this human is injured, like what do we do? And we're like, well, I know a halfling has like a pressure point here, and we like try it and they like bleed hard, or like the third human that we meet of the day says well met to us, and now it's almost like a running joke in this campaign that when we're trying to pass as human, we just say well met like to everybody all the time, because that's the human greeting that people,
which is funny then, because then what has also come true in this world is that is the human greeting. Like it's the human and dwarf thing to say.
Right.
Yeah.
So and things like that are fun, like when when we start doing that and we're like putting the pieces together, and then you as a DM are like, yeah, great. Like if, we found the pattern and we like kind of in character, we prove the rule, and then you just make that into a thing. Yeah. That feels good. It like feels good to play on that side of it.
It does. It's interesting trying to track all of it. Now, I do have a question for you. Do you have an end goal? Like, do you have a
character?
No, as a
DM.
DM, like for your side, because I'll say for mine, I do like in terms of like the key of Rethador and stuff, I do know what the final chapter is.
Interesting.
Like I don't know anything in between, but I do know the like, and then the book closes on this.
Is it related to this like creepy skeleton guy we found in the dungeon?
No,
don't answer that. I don't really want to know.
The creepy skeleton guy they found in the basement was basically a like crypt that was holding like a Draco Lich.
I'm really glad we didn't let that guy
I was
loose.
really glad you guys didn't either.
Good Lord, it would have obliterated us.
I mean, I was fully ready for it too, because the other thing that I do love is blowing up a normal campaign into Crazyville.
Yeah.
Is the most fun thing to me, which is why, like, probably sooner than later, and it will be a mistake when I do, and I'll regret it as soon as I do. But at some point, you guys will probably have a chance where you find a deck of many things.
I am waiting to put a deck. I actually
They're so funny.
I have an encounter planned.
Yeah.
That I'm just waiting. I'm basically waiting for it to happen naturally. But I am definitely handing a deck of many things to the party because it inevitably fucks everything up. I
mean, the last time I put one in, these characters had one, everyone died, and then they just kept pulling through the deck, and they managed to reset back to before the death, but one character died instead. So it was like, instead of everybody dying in terrible thing, it was just they were standing there, and then one of their friends just fell over dead, and they had to just play the rest of the game, where it was like, why did that happen? We have no idea.
Oh, cool.
Because they also lost the deck as a result of it. So it was just this weird thing where it was like, this was great because this worked itself, like it righted the loop.
It did itself out? That's not usually how those go.
No, it was because like the person who drew was not there or something. I don't quite remember how.
Like time, you had like a time fracture or whatever.
There was like a
paradox.
Time fracture or something.
So here's a question for you, because I definitely don't mind doing it. Something I like is trying, hopefully, to teach the party early on to recognize this. But something I enjoy doing is I like breaking away from the kind of like video game trope of, as you get stronger, your enemies scale to meet you, right?
Right.
Because I think something that does is that it almost trivializes gaining strength, because you don't feel stronger. You feel like you're scaling up so that you can keep up with your enemies who are also scaling up.
Right.
So something I like doing is creating encounters that are well beyond the party's capability to deal with them, and likewise, when they reach certain power levels, throwing monsters or like encounters at them that are easily just walk in the park, Cheesecake Factory, like decimation town. Because what I believe it does, and I'm going to ask for your opinion on this, particularly in the respect of my throwing this like full warband of gnolls at you guys. A couple of sessions ago. When
you threw, what was it?
It was like 50 gnolls. At a level 4 party. The world, I want to create a world that feels bigger than the sort of like video gamey style where like your character's only up against something that they should be able to handle at their appropriate like power level, and that like nothing truly important happens unless your character's in the room. Is another trope that I like breaking. Because I think it's more interesting, and from my perspective, so I'm curious to what you think. From as a player, I'm asking you.
Sure.
From my perspective, it's more interesting to like come up against something and be like, we are heroes, we can handle this, and then get your ass kicked and have to fucking run away. Does something to you. Like it should be character effective in the same way that like, if I'm like, cool, I'm going to go out in the woods for a week, and then I come back to town, and because I wasn't there, this like group of orcs or whatever that we all knew was in the area just steamrolled this town and like killed everybody. I think that does something to you as a character where you're like, oh, the world, like this world is not going to wait for me, or like it's not built for me. It's just happening. Stuff is happening, and I have to. Time is also a resource now. In addition to like spell slots and like hit points, I have to think about like, if I go do this thing, then these other things could happen or go wrongly because I'm not there. That sort of deal. So I'm curious what your thoughts on that are as a player.
I mean,
I'm sure there was a way I could have worded that so it didn't take 2 minutes to ask that question.
It was great. I loved it. I mean, obviously, I really enjoy that. Like I definitely like being put in situations where where it's clear I should run away. Like because I like anything that reemphasizes like treat like you will have more fun if you treat these characters like people as opposed to stats.
Right.
Where it's like, yeah, you should have things that you're afraid of. You should have things where it should be a thing where it doesn't matter like that you can beat a bear, that you should still be able to be like, I'm scared of bears. And I will always be scared of bears, no matter how big and fierce I get, because I was like attacked when I was a child.